live streaming the event. All right, so we're on. Okay, I think we can just start. It's already 3 p.m. Okay. All right, so Assalamualaikum and greetings everyone. I'm so happy to see a lot of familiar faces for this talk today. First and foremost, welcome to Child Bilingualism lecture series, co-organized by Child Bilingualism Center of Kuliah of Islamic Legal Knowledge and Human Sciences, IUM, International Islamic University Malaysia, and School of Humanities and Communication Arts, Western Sydney University, Australia. So my Western Sydney counterparts are not here, but they'll be here soon. All right, so I am Roberta Adawiyah. You may call me Ruby. I will moderate the session today. And so for today, I'm actually very, very excited. I'm truly honored to have Associate Professor Dr. Rogayah from Department of Postgraduate Studies, Faculty of Education, Language and Psychology, SEGI University, to share with us a very interesting topic on the morphosyntactic abilities of multilingual Malaysian preschool children. All right, just some introduction to Prof. Rogayah. Prof. Rogayah Razak is a prominent linguist in Malaysia. So she has published extensively, very widely in many high-impact journals in the field of clinical linguistics. So I can attest to this because I cited a lot of Prof works in my own work. So, as I'm speaking now, I'm also fangirling somehow. All right, so Prof Rogayah spent 35 years as an academic in public universities. So with USM, University of Science Malaysia from 1986 to 1996, with University Malaya, UM, 1997 to 2000, and with UKM from year 2000 up till 2021. And Prof has retired from public service, but currently is appointed as a senior academic fellow at Faculty of Health Science, UKM. All right, as I mentioned, Prof has numerous impressive accomplishments, which due to time constraint, there's a lot. So I will mention one. In 2018, Prof Rogayah has invented and commercialized the first standardized language assessment tool to screen and diagnose preschool children at risk of language impairment in Malaysia. So this tool is now being used by speech language therapists, pediatricians, psychologists, researchers in hospitals, schools, and research institutes, including myself as a linguist. Yeah. All right. So having said that, before I pass the session to Prof, I would like to make a couple of announcements, just housekeeping rules. To keep our session smooth, I would like you guys, I would like the audience to mute yourself, to mute your microphone. If you have any questions, please ask at the end of the sessions. Okay, please ask at the end of the session. We have Q&A sessions after Prof has presented. And another thing is, in the event I got kicked out from the session, which had happened before. So do not need to worry. There are 5 students or minions co-hosting the session with me. So just proceed. I'll come back later because it had happened before. I got kicked out from my own session. Yeah. So without further delay, I would like to pass the session to Prof. Rogayah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm very honored actually to be invited to speak. I'm very excited actually that UIA has a child bilingual center, something that one dreams of to have at some point. But I would like to share with you today, the research that I did with my students at University Kebangsaan Malaysia, which I hold very dear to my heart because I was there for 21 years. And we're starting to actually collect data and try to make some tasks that can be used by the speech therapists. So the thing that when I moved to UKM in 2000, one of the things that the speech therapist tells me is that they don't have any tools.
Mm.
So my mission at UKM was to do work which leads the way to that. And as Dr. Ruby was saying, I managed to do a language, a Malay preschool language assessment test. But that took me like years and years. It's a lifetime endeavor.
Mm.
And I would really like to encourage all my fellow linguists to actually coming into the field, especially the young and newly academics, to make this uh, a fruitful endeavor. I was an armchair linguist before my training, as you know. I was trained as an English teacher, and then I started to get to know transformation grammar um, apa tu, um, when I was doing my PhD. So when I was asked to come to UKM, I thought, that would be a good opportunity for me to just to do more. And indeed I have. So I'm gonna share my screen now, because it is an area that I think needs a lot of collaboration from the linguists. The speech therapists, they cannot do it on their own. They have to be, because we are the ones who have the time to do the research. The speech therapists are very busy. They see patients like, what, 12 patients a day, back to back. So we have a lot of opportunities to actually contribute to real problems. Yeah, that is what exciting. We are trying to solve real problems of individuals with communication problems. Yeah? So my talk today, I also would like to thank to UIA Center, Child Bilingualism Center, for inviting me to start the series of talks. I think Dr. Ruby was saying that she is planning to have a series of talks. So this is the first series of. So I'm very happy to be doing the first talk. Yeah? So my talk today is about the morphosyntactic abilities of Malaysian preschool children based on the sentence repetition task. And I could never do this without my students. So my student is Zurhanis Hamim. She's actually she is a UIA grad. So she was doing her master's in clinical linguistics. Now she's in University Putra Malaysia. And then my other student is Brian. Brian Cho Kai Sho. He's a speech language therapist. Just joined the pediatric hospital in UKM. So he's a very young, bright young man. Okay, so I will proceed. So my talk today will actually, I'll be talking about multilingualism in Malaysia, and interesting aspects that we should consider. I'm going to talk about sentence repetition tasks, just to introduce to you what it is, what it can do. And then I'm going to conducted by Zurhanis Hamim as part of a master's research project. And then continue with study 2, which is Brian, who did a multilingual Chinese children. And these are Chinese children using English, Mandarin, and Malay. Yeah. So he started the research in 2019, and the aim of the research was to actually recruit patients, Chinese children with developmental language delay, as part of the study. But because of the COVID, it was really difficult to get to recruit subjects. So we just stopped at the typical developing kids. So just a brief introduction that Malaysia, we are multilingual, multicultural. There are 130 languages spoken in Malaysia, and there are, I think it's really difficult to get monolinguals in Malaysia. Most of us are bilingual or multilingual. You only get a monolingual person if the person lives really far away in the hinterlands, di pendalaman misalnya, they 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 were born there, they grew up there, they they live there. So they are not, you know, so they mainly talk, like say, Kelantan Malay. And rarely do they go outside and be able to have a chance to speak formal Malay. Even when they go out to get services from government departments, they'll still be talking Kelantan Malay. So that is a very special case of monolingual. But for most of us, I think we are not monolingual. So as you can see, these are the ethnic composition in Malaysia. Uh, Malays and indigenous group Bumiputra 65%, Chinese 26%, and Indian 8%. And these are the languages that we speak. People always say that Malays are monolingual. I would like to contradict that. I think we speak Malay and we speak the dialects. And then within Malay, Malay is diglossic, so we have the high Malay and the low Malay. And therefore, in itself, we are bilingual. Of course, if you know other languages, then you are multilingual. And the Chinese people in Malaysia, they are so multilingual. They can know about 5 to 6 languages. Um, Therefore, it goes for the same goes for Indians and indigenous people. So I'm saying here, like a Malay speaks high Malay, low Malay, Malay dialect, high English, low English. Low English means Malaysian English. There are 5 varieties already, you know, and so forth for Chinese, 6 languages or varieties. So bilingual in Malaysia is unique, as I was saying just now, because of the diglossic side of our languages, be it Malay or English, um, and it poses. And the thing is, we are the mainstream. The mainstream are multilingual, and we use standard varieties and their colloquial varieties inextricably. That means anywhere and whenever it's appropriate, we'll use them. But however, for the speech language therapists, when they are dealing with children or adults with this myriad multilingual abilities is such a big problem for them. Um, in order to identify whether a person has a language problem or impairment, they need to know the details about the language, you know. So so we have the SLTs on the left, and then we have their purpose at the end, and then we have in the middle us, the population, the multi-ethnicity, multilingualism, and to top it up, to top it off, as I said, in 2000 when I came to UKM, there's a lack of local standardized assessment tools, which local standardized assessment tools for speech therapy purposes. Even in like 21 years, only one which has been standardized, and there are a few of my colleagues working on Mandarin, um, Tamil speech therapy tools. Yeah. Okay. So then, when talking about bilingualism, the issue of second language comes in, or third language comes in, or is it a language deficit? Yeah. So when you test a child with a standardized test, 2 things will happen. Either it gives a L2 effect, or it gives a deficit. So L2 effects means you have the child having a repertoire of 2 language, for example. Um, and then his L1 is Mandarin, let's say, and his L2 is Malay. He's learning Malay in school. So um, when he comes, I've been involved in screening for kids who have problems with academic. Um, and so I was, you know, running through the reading tests with the child, and the child couldn't pronounce the words, couldn't do much with the task. And then I sort of asked the mom. I said, "Mom, how is he in his language?" And the mom says, "He's fine. He's fine in Chinese." in Mandarin. So in that case, if that's the case, then it is just the L2 effects, learning a second language. And then the other side of it is deficits, where you have evidence of language impairment. However, this language impairment has to be proven in all the languages that a child knows. If he is language impaired, he will be language impaired in all languages. Yeah. So therefore, when we want to test a child, we have to test in all the languages that the child knows to come to this conclusion. So although I started off with doing a monolingual preschool language test, but I do know like soon enough that is not enough. We must have a multilingual tool. Okay. And then when we're talking about multilingualism in Malaysia, in Southeast Asia region, it is so different from the Western countries. So in Malaysia, the multilingual population are the mainstream. So and we do code mixing and code switching, and it's just part of who we are. We speak in and out of varieties very easily. So if a child is learning English as L2, then he doesn't get a lot of to get real life exposure to language 2, and hence it might impede their learning. This is especially for the working class children, children from working class families. Yeah? It is not so for the professionals and the upper middle class. Um, so, however, in the West, in the Western countries, the bilinguals are always the migrants or the marginalized groups who then um, get into the mainstream, into the dominant monolingual mainstream English environment. So to me, I've always thought that there should be another theory for multilingualism in Southeast Asia, for example, which is not quite similar to the West. Okay. So bilingual children it has been shown that their development is similar to monolingual children. Although sometimes they're receptive, which is their comprehension, and expressive, which is their production language skills, may vary. Factors such as language dominance, which language gets the most exposure, which language gets the most use by the child, language exposure, yes, and language input contribute to either delay or progress in a child's language development. But usually bilingual speakers typically has a repertoire of languages. He will have a more dominant language and a weaker language, and he will tend to use the more dominant language with greater vocabulary, longer sentences, and fewer pauses. So the sentence repetition task, as I was saying just now, that in Malaysia, for example, there are actually there's very limited tools. Okay, so then you think, so what are the speech therapists using? So what they are using, actually they buy tools from the West, they adapt the tools, and then they use it, but they don't have the norms. So in terms of when they get the scores, when they want to interpret the scores, they don't have the norm. The norms are actually the norms of the monolingual English speaking children. So when you do a standardized test, in order to interpret you the results of the population of children. However, a sentence repetition task is a very convenient and quick way of determining whether a child has language impairment. So it is a tool to measure typical and atypical language development for especially developmental language delay children and many other children with language impairment. The task consists of two parts, which is it tests comprehension and it tests production, and it has the components of phonology, morphosyntactic, semantic, as well as working memory. And sentence repetition task has been extensively used in many languages and has been proven to be a useful tool in identifying language processing abilities and weakness. So, so a sentence repetition task basically look at morphosyntax, because what we do is the stimuli are actually sentences that you have prepared in the sentence repetition task. The sentences are read to these children. The children hear the spoken sentence and then repeat the sentence as he has heard it. So so in understanding the sentence, you will be using language, meaning, sentence structure, morphology. And as we know, Malay is very big on morphology. And then it does include short-term memory, long-term memory, and working memory before the child can produce or repeat the sentence. So it has been used in typically developing monolinguals, multilinguals, and children with DLD. Better scores, according to these authors, better scores in L1. Usually, the multilingual population children produce better scores in L1. They have more function word errors compared to content words. Function word errors because these are the difficult grammatical elements in a sentence. There's no meaning to this. Primarily, no meaning. It's just grammatical meaning compared to content words. So the children with DLD does have problems with function words compared to content words. And of course, as we say that there are limited multilingual sentence repetition tasks in Malaysia. So these are the factors which can contribute to sentence repetition performance. So we have the language variables, age, age of onset, the use of the language. We also can look at language subgroupings where there might be children. In order to address the different languages that you're dealing with, what is recommended is we use comparable sentences, which is language independent structures and language specific structures. So what we do in the second study is we look at the three languages and we choose the structures that we want to select for the sentence repetition task. And let's say we're doing relative clause, so it'll be relative clause for all the three languages. However, whatever way that the language manifests itself for those structures. So this is a sample, like a scoring form that we use. So this is the target sentence. This is the English sentence repetition. So the first sentence is they are eating the mango in the playground. So I'll just, I'll say to the child, I'm going to read you a sentence, listen carefully. Please repeat the sentence as you have heard it. Yeah? So then the Malay one is Ali sedang makan nasi di kantin. So what we're doing here is the word order is the same: subject, verb, object, adverbial. Let's say. So in the Malay one, we also retain that. Um, so what is happening here is that when the child listens to the sentence, he has to understand the sentence. So he'll be using his comprehension of grammar, of words, to actually bring the words together to form the sentence, and then to use that information, that ability to then repeat. So it's not an easy task to do. Okay. So this is the sentence repetition for Mandarin. Um, So as I said just now, we try to make structures comparable. Yeah, I don't read Mandarin, so that's why we have the translation. So this is okay. So Malaysian studies on SR is very limited. Abu Bakar in 2017. She's my first PhD, local PhD student in clinical linguistics at UKM. So she constructed the first Malay school children. 15 children were chronological age 7 to 9 years old. 15 children were children chronological age as the first group just now. And then she has this is a control group, and she has another control group of 15 preschool children. Okay, so these are the language. We have the DLD group, and we have the language age control group. So actually what happens is that, of course, the accuracy score in sentence repetition for the CA group was significantly higher than both the DLD group and the language age group in terms of grammar, syntax, structure, and sentence. Um, Actually, there were no significant difference between the DLD group versus the language age group. That means the 7 to 9 years old children with DLD, their language age is about the typically developing preschool children. So their chronological age is 7 to 9, but their language age, the language age is the level of language ability they're at. So although they are in maybe standard 1 to standard 3, but they are actually having language ability like preschool children who are about 4 to 6, 11 years old. Yeah. So and that, I think that's the important thing that she has found in her study. Um, and of course, the CA group did significantly better repeating content and function words compared to the DLD in the language control group. But however, we see that among the chronological age group, uh, age is a factor. That means as children goes, as the age uh, increases, then the ability for performance in sentence repetition tasks increases. So you have the 4-year-old would only repeat. These are typically developing children. So the 4-year-old would repeat mostly content words. And then the 5-year-old would repeat the content words and some of the function words. And then the 6 years old will repeat everything. Okay. So it is a very sensitive tool for age difference and developmental. Okay. And then for the um, Mandarin English sentence repetition was done by Woon, 2012. She looked at Chinese children learning using Mandarin and English, and she also showed better performance in Mandarin compared to the English SR. So this might be indicative of the developmental stages of the lexical and morphosyntactic knowledge of the bilingual children. So so these are the two studies that have been published, and recently Zurhanim, we published in for the Malay bilingual study. We published in Britannica, Journal of Social Science and Humanities, um, and then the study on for Brian's work, we are going to be published in Journal of Medical of UIA, maybe in July. Okay, so so we are going today to talk. I'm going to present data on the two studies, uh, basically looking at the morphology and the syntactic abilities of these children. So this is the objectives of the first study, bilingual Malay children. So we wanted to see the performance. We want to see the morphological and syntactic abilities. We wanted to see the influence of the two languages, and then some error patterns. So 60 children between 4 years to 6, 11 years old, which is preschool years for Malaysia, living in Klang Valley, and they use Malay as their language one. And L2, they learn when they get into preschool. Um, and they are developmentally normal, as verified by the teachers and the parents. Yeah. So we use the multilingual sentence repetition task from the cost. But we adapt it because the English in course is is the standard, is the a variety of English in Europe or in the UK. So when you get to Malaysia, we have to adapt it to Malaysian English. Some of the structures might be a bit difficult for children speaking English here. And then we use the Nur Sofia Abu Bakar. We use her Malay sentence repetition task, 24 sentence items. Um, so we took it from the protocols are from Litmus sentence repetition protocols by Marinas and Armalatom, core section. Yeah. So we each participant listen to the audio recording of the 24 sentences and then repeat verbatim the sentence heard after 3 seconds. So we then, based on the scoring sheet, we looked at accuracy, grammaticality, sentence type, and types of errors. And then we also provide some qualitative examples. So the overall performance is that the children perform better in their L1 in Malay compared to English. There is a significant difference in terms of accuracy um, for Malay and English. Um, this is the performance based on the age groups. So you can see that the performance um, they sort of increase across the 4, the 5, and the 6, even though it looks like there are individual variation. Yeah. Um, but overall, I think the scores, the mean scores, although they are close at 5, 6, 11 onwards. Yeah. Okay. The scores increase with the increase in age. The same for this. This is the correlation between accuracy, grammaticality, and sentence type scores. So the accuracy scores and grammaticality scores are strongly correlated. Um, accuracy scores and sentence type scores are negatively uh, uh, correlated, yeah, in terms of the both the English and the Malay. Um, in terms of the accuracies and sentence type, I think it was noted that for sentence type, if the answer doesn't follow the target, but the child produces grammatical sentence, um, then the child gets a score for that. Yeah? So that's why sometimes it shows that the child can do it, but actually when you look at it in detail, is not really that. So regardless of age, they have higher SR accuracy in their L1 rather than L2. And the correlation analysis proved that grammatical knowledge is important to ensure accuracy in SR tasks, and um, bilingual children appeared not able to repeat the correct syntactic target, especially for English. Yeah. Um, this is the performance on the content word CW. MSR is the Malay sentence repetition, and this is the function word. This is the English sentence repetition. This is the content word and function word. So the production of content word are higher than function word as expected, because the content words are words that they use every day. They are open class compared to function words. That what is interesting about Malay, for example, is that when we speak Malay in everyday colloquial Malay, we tend to simplify our language. So we don't use a lot of function words because the context is very rich. So that is why even in Malay, the function words are not as high as the content words. Okay. The difference in production of content and function words based on age groups may further relate to cumulative exposure. Yeah, the longer that you're exposed to the language, the better you can perform in content versus function. Um, and then, of course, the function word Actually, the function word, it is a difficult category of words to acquire even for older kids. So there are certain function words that even the 6 years old are not able to, because it's acquired later. So we're talking about relative clauses, for example. The structures of relative clauses are acquired later, maybe when they are 9 to 10 years old. So for example, like passives. So for Malay passives, when you test them with a D, they have difficulty with that. The D, like D curi, was stolen, for example. But then but then they will substitute it with kena curi, get stolen. So there is a tendency for kids, they are more familiar with the colloquial use of passive than the formal use of passive. So therefore, the function word, they cannot get the function word until they get to um, primary school, and they get exposed to more formal language. Then they would be improving. So this is a type of errors. So you have omission errors, you have substitution errors, and addition errors for the Malay sentence repetition, and also for the English. So there is a steady decrease in the mean of omission errors, and a steady increase in the mean of substitution and addition errors. So um, it can be said that when you are younger, you tend to omit more because your language is still maturing. But when you get older, when you are 5 to 6 years old, you tend to do less of omission, but do more of substitution. Yep. Yeah. So in overall, omission has the most prominent error, and then as you can see from the function words, omission is much more much more compared to the content words. So you have the function words here, and then you have the content words here. So you can see that for omission here, the content words here. So the omission on the left side is much higher than the content words. And then the content words basically have higher omission rates for the function words. Sorry, the omission of the function words is higher than the content words. So qualitative analysis. We give you some examples. This is the Malay SR and the English SR, and these are the targeted words, and these are what the responses of the children. So as a whole, you can see that if you're targeting like biri biri, sheep, the child substitute it with a goat. Probably biri-biri is not a familiar animal in Malaysia. They see more of goats than sheep. And then gunung, if it's a gunung, a mountain, they give you a hill. But however, it falls into the same semantic domain. So for example, bersarapan pagi, have breakfast, they'll say eat or makan. Or siapkan, they'll say do. Bercita-cita, they say nak, which is want to. And then you look at the English SR, where the subjects actually substitute or add. If it's a target word homework, they'll say book. Student, they'll say children. Mango, they say apple. Bake, they'll say make or eat. Like, they'll say love. Bought, they'll say got or brought. So notice that as a whole, the substitution and the addition by the children are more they are more in the case of for the Malay, they are closer together in semantic, but for English, they are more the general ones rather than the uh, approximate meaning. And then, of course, in passives, as I said just now, they don't do very well with D. So if you say mainan itu dibeli, ayah di bandar, they will say mainan itu akan dibeli, ayah di bandar. They will actually drop the preposition oleh, by. The same goes for English. They'll drop the preposition by and the agent. Yeah. And then they will substitute passive sentence into adversative passive. So if we say, the response, kucing Ali dilanggar semalam. So they'll say, instead of doing the formal way, they'll say the colloquial way. Kucing Ali kena langgar semalam.
Abah nak ubah apa kat situ tadi? Abah cakap kedah apa? Cuba tanya Abah.
Okay. Right. So the same with ter. Also substituted for ter, which is a better, a more colloquial way. For okay. And even for the English, they will say, let's say the stimuli is the cow was kicked by the cow. The cow was kicked. Maybe I think the goat was kicked by the cow. Maybe. So the child will say the cow by the cow. They will delete the was kicked. Or the child were taken to the office. They'll say the children to the office. They'll not do the passive form of the verb. Omission of relative young or that relative clause is a phenomena that is also found in other studies like Rogayah, who did on Malay Singapore children, preschool children. Kids actually, so they'll say ketua polis garang itu ayah saya. It should be ketua polis yang garang itu ayah saya. For example, mommy baked the cake that we like. They'll say mommy baked the cake we like. So relative clause are harder for them, or they just give you whatever structures that they can think of, alternative responses. Yeah. So the morphological features of a child also may provide a window through which one can view the influence of word knowledge on the production of the sentences. And the bilingual children in this study demonstrate the developmental improvement in canonical sentences, but lag in the acquisition of non-canonical sentences. So they are okay with active sentences, but they have problems with passives or WH questions. Yeah? So in Zurhani's study, age is a factor and language experience are important factors. And children tend to choose the simplification strategy in order to compensate for the grammatical knowledge. Yeah, so these are the key findings. So older children are more successful than younger children. Bilingual children perform better in their L1. Omission strategy is the most common strategy. In function words tend to be omitted more than content words. There are evidence of cross-linguistic transfer for lexical words especially. Because sometimes some words in Malay are just English words. I don't know why. For preschool children, we'll say pizza, we'll say apple, we'll say ball, So I guess that's why kids also produce that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we proceed to study 2. Unless you have questions, but we'll have questions at the end. Yeah. Okay. So multilingual Chinese children. So we wanted to explore the performance using the multilingual SR, as I said just now, Mandarin, English, and Malay. So the objective is to develop the multilingual SR kit and to compare the aspects being measured among these children: accuracy, grammaticality, sentence structure, to determine the validity and reliability of the task and to explore error patterns. So in this study, this was done, as I said, 2019, 2020. So I'm more informed in that sense. So we actually use a bit more tools. We use thank you very much NUS, National University of Singapore, who developed BLAB, which is the Bilingual Language Assessment by 3 Picture Test, receptive and expressive. So we got it from them. And then because we're dealing with 3 languages, we thought, okay, we need to do a degree of multilingualism on the children. So we did a questionnaire. We took it from course uh, and questionnaire for parents of bilingual children, PABIQ. This is where you ask the domains that the children use the language, what are the language that they use, how frequent they use each language. So you get a very interesting information about language use among the repertoire of languages. And then the multilingual task. So for this time around, we decided we want to streamline it. Okay, so we actually streamline it. For example, if it's a structure that we are developing subject verb object with an auxiliary or modal, we will make sure that all the languages have them, even though for example Mandarin might not be as similar as English and Malay, but as long as it follows that sentence pattern. And then following Komeli, we actually uh, categorize the structures according to levels. So we did level 1, basically simple sentence. We did level 2 with complements, long passives, cleft, and we did level 3, subject, object, relative clause, subordinate clause. And 24 sentences altogether with face validity of 0.720 and inter and intra reliability, which is very good, 0.92 and 0.964. So these are our children. We took children, Chinese children, 4, 5, and 6. It was by the end, by the time we started to collect data, it was difficult because of the COVID. So we managed to get 10 kids, and 4 years old, 5, 5 years old, 4, and 6 years old, one child. So the mean age is 63.50 months. Age of onset when they first being exposed to the language, as you can see by months. They are exposed to English first, and then Mandarin, and then Malay. They are exposed like very quite late, about nearly 3 years old. And then what about their total use? Of course, English is used the most, followed by Mandarin, and the lowest by Malay. Basically, they don't speak Malay at home, most of them. Vocabulary, the blab, they do very well in English, in Mandarin, and lowest in Malay. Yeah. Um, okay, so this one I hope you can see. Um, but basically, this one is performance of SR scores based on the mean and standard deviation. And its domains. Domains means we're looking at grammaticality, sentence structure, content words, function words, vocabulary, and then between the languages of English, of Malay, English, Mandarin, and Malay. So this middle one is Mandarin, this is English, and this is Malay. So, so this table, the findings were significant for each score in the multilingual sentence repetition task with large effect size. As you can see, it's bolded. Yeah? So significant values. All right. So the overall accuracy, of course, the most by English. And you can see Malay having the most, the least of the scores. Mandarin following closely to English. All right. This is we did a post hoc comparison of sentence repetition domains in the 3 languages. It indicated that scores between English and Malay and scores between Mandarin and Malay differed significantly on each of the measures, um, with large effect size, except vocabulary scores. So So you can see vocabulary scores, which is about similar. Except vocabulary scores between English and Mandarin. English and Mandarin, which is this one. Yeah? English and Mandarin. In overall accuracy, they perform similarly. For grammatical and sentence structure, they the participants had equal scores between English and Mandarin, but significantly lower scores for Malay. Yeah. Okay. This is the correlation of the language variables, which is age of onset, vocabulary scores, and SR scores. And we can see that so you can see that of course English has higher it is correlation is very significant. Yeah. This is accuracy versus grammaticality for the languages, and so this figure 1 shows differences between accuracy and grammaticality. Um, the Wilcoxon sign ranks reveal significant difference between the English accuracy and the English grammaticality, whereas there is no significant difference between Mandarin accuracy and grammaticality, and between and very no significance between Malay accuracy and grammaticality. This is a level of complexity. This is the ANOVA for the differences in repeating sentence structures between different complexity items. So we had, remember, a level 1, level 2, and level 3. So these are the 3 levels, and then so these are level 1, sorry, these are level 2, and these are level 3, and then these are the languages. So 3 sets of Wilcoxon sign ranks reveal significant differences between English level 1 and level 3 and level 2 for Malay. So this result suggests that the children were significantly more able to repeat structures in English and also in Mandarin, but at level 1 and at level 2, but they have difficulty repeating. But for the Malay language, for the level of complexity, you can see that the children did very limited. So there was none that was scored for all 3 levels. They didn't repeat sentences of increasing complexity. Okay. Then we go to qualitative results. So the qualitative results, this is a summary of comparison of content word errors across English, Mandarin, and Malay. So you can see that the Malay language has higher omission of content words compared to substitution or even addition. They omitted the content words for English. Less than the Mandarin, yeah. And then the substitution and addition for Mandarin and English seems to be similar. Okay. Then for the function words, Um, the function words for omission, they omit a lot of function words for Malay words that they manage to repeat, um, and they do less of substitution and addition for Malay because there were not many sentences that they were able to repeat. Okay. Okay, let's look at some examples. This is examples of omission in English, as in this omission resulted in ungrammatical sentences. So the target was, it was daddy who drive me to school. The response, it was daddy who drive me school. So omission of preposition. The target is mommy baked the cake that we like. The response is mommy baked the cake we like. So omission of the relative marker, that. And then substitution. She was called by the teacher in class. She was called by the teacher at the class. So they tend to substitute the preposition, substitute in with at. She cannot carry the water jug to the table. He cannot carry the water jug in the table. So substitution of pronouns. Second language learners do have a lot of problems with pronouns and preposition. And then these further examples, some auxiliaries in sentence patterns were omitted for Mandarin, as in sentence 12. Substitution of unfamiliar words, common words. Sorry. So this one is substitution, omission of words. Yeah, omission of the words, and then number 13 is substitution of unfamiliar words to common words. Um, for example, this one, the fierce tiger was killed by a person, substitution of hunter to person. Um, so if you able to read Mandarin, you might be familiar with the omission and the substitution. Okay, so basically, multilingual Chinese children demonstrated equivalent performance in Mandarin and English, but significantly lower in Malay. Chronological age was significantly correlated only with English and Mandarin, but not Malay. Malay scores were not correlated, probably due to the low use at home. English vocabulary scores had positive correlation with the English SR, and this is supported by reports that children with higher vocabulary repertoires have better language skills. So having good vocab is very important for language ability, good language ability. And contrary to these studies, vocabulary scores did not correlate to SR scores in Mandarin and Malay due to the low scores. What about total use and age of onset scores in derived from the parent bilingual questionnaire? Had no effects on SR scores in contrast to previous study, but probably this is due to the small sample size of 10 and low variability. And if we do it on a bigger population, we might get different results. Okay, so they do significantly better English and Mandarin compared to Malay. With increasing age, they do better. However, the results are not representative of the population, as we only had 10. But it goes to show that the Malay and the bilingual sentence repetition tasks, Malay English and Mandarin English Malay, reliable and valid to use to test morphosyntactic abilities of typically developing children and also children with DLD. So with that I end my presentation. Our appreciation goes to the parents, the children at the kindergartens, and the owner or the teachers at the kindergarten who helped us in um, the data collection. We'd like to thank Professor Dr. Susan Rickert Leong of MUS for BLAB. We'd like to say thank you to Professor Theodoros Marinis from Constance University for the course, the SRs from the course. Okay, terima kasih. So these are the, yeah, this one I think is from Brian, and this is from Zurhanis. With that I end. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. I think that's such a wonderful presentation, very full of information, things that I've never known before. So I would like to open the floor for questions to Prof. Rogayah. If any of our audience have any questions. Okay, Prof. Jizla, I see you raising your hand. Please, yeah, you can unmute yourself.
It's as in the classroom. I'm raising my hand.
Okay. Yes, Prof. Please.
Yeah. Oh, these were two wonderful studies with such a lot of data. Thank you very much for presenting them. I have two questions. First, the study about Malay. And I have also been working a lot with sentence repetition, so I appreciate to have data from a language I don't know. There was more problems with function words than content words. That's what we find as well. But what about the difference between passives and relative clauses? Were the relative clauses more difficult than the passives?
Yes, the relative clauses are more difficult than the passive because we tested for subject relative clause and object relative clause. So the kids were able to repeat the subject relative clause, but most often they could not repeat the object relative clause, which is in line with the research on other languages. Yeah. For the passives, because they have the option of the colloquial Malay, get passive. So when we give them the stimuli in formal Malay with a D, passive, and agent, or D without agent, either they drop the D or they just switch to kena, which is get passive.
Okay, yes.
Which actually means they know how to use passive, but they don't know the form that we were targeting. So I guess it's not really, I guess you could say that they know partially the meaning and the structure for passive, but they have yet to learn as they get familiarized with the formal language. Yeah.
So they use an alternative, so they
use alternatives.
Yeah. I also saw on your screen, on your data, that there were some children who put the complementizer, that, in the wrong place after the relative clause. Did I say that correctly? Because that is something I have found in Swedish as well, that they use the relative pronoun, but in the wrong place, wrong position.
You're talking about the examples, yeah?
Yes, the examples, yeah.
For the Malay one?
The Malay, the first study. You had some data.
Yeah.
You had examples.
Examples.
There.
Talking about relative clause, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they said the homework, that was easy. Okay, so now can you show the next slide as well? Okay, so I misunderstood it, but thank you very much for clarifying it.
This one is passives.
Yeah, no, it was the relative clause I was looking at. So thank you very much.
They don't, yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Prof, you remember we met in Singapore?
We did.
We did, yes.
I think so.
Before that, you came to UKM. You remember with Nicholas?
I did, yes, absolutely.
Yes,
so but I haven't learned any Malay. Thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Prof. Jizla. Anyone else would like to ask Prof. Rogayah questions? I have a question. So it might sound silly, but what to do? Well, I don't know. I don't know. So, Prof, I just want to ask, at what age actually we can have this sentence repetition task? Because for you, you start at age 4, preschool children.
Yeah.
What is the earliest age we can use this tool for to test children for language impairment? Yeah, these issues of language impairment.
I think normally 4, but I think you could go a bit 3 plus, maybe if the child has good language. I don't know. I think the one that I saw mostly preschool, because in language studies for language acquisition, you have the preschool kids. You can test them by actual language tasks. But when you go down 3 years 11 and below, they don't have enough language. So we usually do a parent questionnaire, which is like a MacArthur CDI, Communication Development Inventory, for them to report on the kids. But I think if it's 3, maybe the earliest, maybe a 3 plus year old child. But sentence repetition are also used for adults. So it's it's very fast. Like it's not like a full blown language test, which takes about at least 40 minutes. It goes very fast, like maybe less than 20 minutes. If the child is able to do faster, you finish fast. If the child has difficulty, it might be slower. But very easy to apply, to administer, and not and quite convenient to analyze. It gives you a lot of information about morphology, content words, function words, and then it tells you about the grammar, sentence.
Yeah. The reason
I
I'm
really encourage people who are interested to use the tool, please get in touch with me. We are willing to share the tool. Although we haven't standardized it, so I guess if you're just using it as a criterion base, it's fine, but not yet for. But I think it still be okay if you use it as it does show impairment. It's not standardized. But yeah, willing to share.
Right. So usually, as you mentioned, usually 4 years old, because why I'm asking, I mean, I'm not a clinical linguist, but I look at this. Some parents, sometimes they get a little bit overly concerned if their parents, if their children are not speaking, let's say by age of 2. So sometimes I think there's no cause of concern, 2 years old. So yeah, maybe do you think for parents who have this concern, they can maybe use this kind of sentence repetition tools? What do you think?
If a child is 3 years old and the child has one word in their utterance, that's a cause for concern. So I would say, some people say just wait, the child will eventually, we call them late talkers. They will eventually catch up. So right now they're just absorbing everything, and then come one time, voila, they'll have the full range of language. But sometimes it doesn't happen that way. So it's good to actually go to see your pediatrician, and then they will recommend to see the speech therapist, just to be on the safe side. Maybe they just need stimulation, language stimulation by the speech therapist, and they're okay. Yeah. So
I see Prof. Gisela. I see Prof. Gisela raising her hand again. Please, Prof. Please.
I really like these Zoom meetings. I have actually tried on younger children, but I agree. 4 years of age, then it's good to use 4 years and later. You can have up to 10 years if you have longer sentences. And but I have actually tried with 2.5-year-olds. And they are not mature enough for this, because this is like a meta-linguistic game. So if I say it's raining, can you say after me, it's raining? They will say, no, it isn't. I also had one of these kind of passives. This is the cow that the horse is kicking. And then he could say, this is the cow that, and then I said, this is the horse that is kicked by the cow. And then he said, I have already said.
That's
And then
right.
he didn't want to say another word. So I think they are not cognitively mature to play this kind of language game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or you give them a sentence, you give them a question, and they answer the question. They don't repeat the question, but they answer it.
Okay, I say, yeah, Dr. Kazriati.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Rogayah. Nice meeting you here. Thank you for your talk. It was very interesting.
Kawan lama. Thank you.
All right, we go a long way.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering about what Prof. Gisela has mentioned just now. It's about engagement with these children when you conduct experiments or studies with younger children. You know, how do you actually maintain the interest of these children? Because as you mentioned earlier, it can go as long as like 40 minutes, you know, and as you know, children's attention span is very limited. And that's one thing. And the other thing is that when we talk about getting the students, the children to repeat, you know, sometimes they don't rely on their syntactic ability, but the semantics, you know, they understand it and they create their own languages. So these are, they create the sentences based on what they understood. So it's the semantics rather than the syntactic ability there. So these are just some questions that I was thinking as you presented just now. Any comments on that? Thank you.
Well, we usually have we do oh, I see Zurhanis there. Zurhanis, you wanna share your experience collecting data? Usually we have incentive. We show them something. We say, if you do this, we will give it to you at the end of the task, and so they get excited. But maybe Zurhanis.
Hi everyone. Based on my experience, like what Dr. Gisela and Dr. Rabiato was a bit concerned just now, the children actually had some trouble to deal with the many sentences that we gave them. But for me, what I did with them was actually to try to conduct the research, the study, as if I was doing a game with them. So what I did was I did like a slideshow where they have to press on things, and then in order for them to move on to the next stage, so they have to fulfill the task. So that's what I did with them, and they managed to actually follow the step. Otherwise, it's going to take a long time for them to complete all 24 sentences, and 24 sentences just for one language, and we have 2 languages, so it's a lot for them to do. So with that, you know, it creates like an active environment and it's happening for them rather than, you know, a serious thing for them to carry out. Yeah.
Do you give rewards? I mean, candies or lollies and toys? Zurhanis, do you give rewards? I mean, after they accomplish something, you give lollies or candies or anything?
Oh yeah, I give them candies after they are done. Yeah. And normally, I had to do the test in 2 separate sessions. One is for Malay and another one is for English. And prior to the task day itself, I actually came to the center, to their preschools, to just build rapport with them, so that they feel comfortable with me, and then I could easily do the task for them the next day.
Yes, it's very clear. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
It's very hard actually to do this kind of task.
Sorry?
It's very hard actually to do this task with 4 years old.
Oh, yes, of course.
They are very challenging. Yes. So yeah. Sometimes you cannot complete all the tasks within within one go. It will take you quite some time.
Yeah. Understandable. Thank you so much. Any questions
Yeah,
from our audience? Oh, Dr. Bruno. Yes, Dr. Bruno DBSC.
Yes. Look, I was wondering if the sentence repetition is only spoken, or do you have any kind of visual aid for kids to look at? As you say the sentence, you only say the sentence, and the children. What do children do in that case? Do they just listen to you?
Yeah, so when we give the instruction, we say, I'm going to read you a sentence. Please, and I point to my ears, and I say, please listen carefully. Dengar baik-baik, listen carefully. Gesturing to your ears, and then repeat the sentence as you heard it. So, so the children will actually, we do have practice items before the actual item. As for it's purely by auditory, no visual. The only visual that's available that is used, I think Zurhanis was saying she did some PowerPoint, like cartoons, characters as incentive, but otherwise it's mainly auditory. And I know Brian actually recorded the response, the stimuli. Brian, you recorded the stimuli.
Right.
Is that right?
Is here.
But you were lucky that you got actual answers. So you got so many answers because I mean there have been experiences with children where this kind of thing has completely failed. For instance, Elizabeth Bates in Italy, she found that she could not possibly get the kids to repeat anything after her because they would say, well, why? Why should I do that?
I think Zurhani's experienced some phase of that. I remember she was lamenting to me it was difficult to collect data. The kids have difficulty cooperating, I think he once said. There's some phases where you felt they were not cooperating. And Brian, can you hear us? He's there, but he's maybe...
Yes, I can.
So, oh, you can. Hi. So we're talking about, Dr. Bruno is talking about how do you get children to cooperate? It's only by auditory, no visual. So how do you get the subjects to actually repeat the sentence as you want? I remember you two were complaining to me. The kids sometimes say, I don't want to do.
So I think
right?
as a can you hear me?
Yes.
So, as a speech therapist, I think that's a very common question all the time in the clinics. So I think one thing, especially with younger kids, sometimes you have to entice them. You have to give them a lot of time in order to settle down. You have to play with them first for a bit, and then you have to maybe entice them a bit. For example, okay, if we do this, okay, I'll give you something. So we'll play something. Usually I'll bring myself toys, bubbles, dolls, or like my suitcase of language activities. Play with them. Then after they're done, they're happy. Okay, come, you follow me out. You do my thing. Something like that. Yeah.
So you got to have plenty of bribes.
A lot.
Essentially, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bruno. Do you have any more questions, Dr. Bruno?
No, but just this issue about function words and content words. I mean, there are certain kind of circularity risks, like where we say, okay, the more words you know, the more you know the language. Well, of course, I mean, what else could it be? Right. So that this kind of thing ends up being quite circular. But in terms of function and content, I mean, the content has got some sort of meaning that can be visualized. I mean, I guess with children we would mainly use concrete sort of items like dog, cat, and so on, rather than words like democracy or virtue or something like that.
Democracy.
Okay, but then now those words are not really more frequent than grammatical, than function words. Function words are far more frequent, right? So it is rather, in a way, mysterious how these much more highly frequent things get missed, and I guess the connection is with the fact that they don't have a meaning that is kind of visible or concrete in some way, and also that they are grammatical, so they're kind of far more abstract. So it's not just a matter of saying, okay, which content, the function words and content words, but which function words are missing. I think that is really the crucial thing to understand, the level of development of language rather than vocabulary size, for instance, right?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bruno. Which function?
I think I agree with you in some ways. That it's more important to know what function words are more difficult than other function words or content words. But I think for speech therapy purposes, the vocabulary size, the kind of words that they know, the function words are important to combine the words into a sentence.
Sure.
So I think sentence repetition task is mainly for speech therapy use, where you administer it to children with language impairment, and you can exactly know which are the areas that the speech therapists need to work on, or the teachers, for that matter, to teach when they teach these kids. The data that we have right now are on typically developing kids, but will be interesting to see for future studies when we do this sentence repetition task, multilingual, on children with developmental language delay. And then we can see more difficulties that they would have. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully, Brian, you will collaborate with me again, right? Yeah, because he's in the clinic now and he's have access to kids. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Any more questions to our Prof. Rogayah? Okay, I think, yes, thank you. Oh, okay, so continue, Prof. Gisela, continue.
I speak too much.
No, it's okay.
I don't want to blow my own trumpet, if that's what to say in Malay. But I wonder, I did write a paper many years ago in Journal of Child Language about relative clauses, sentence repetition for typical development in children with language impairment. Should I send it to you? Should I write the reference in the chat?
Yes, please.
Yes, please do.
Please.
So
we published a paper, me and Nur Sofia Abu Bakar, because Sofia Abu Bakar looked at three structures, three syntactic structures, which is relative clause, WH, and passive, and DLD, children with DLD. So we published a relative clause, acquisition of relative clause among Malay children in Gemma, UKM. So that's interesting. I'll send you that one.
Yes, please.
Yes, I think Ruby has your contact, your email.
Yeah.
I'll send you that one.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it's in Malay. You don't read Malay, huh?
No.
Actually, it's in Malay.
Unfortunately.
You should translate that. Unfortunately.
So it will take some time for me to learn. How do I paste? I have copied, but I cannot paste it. I don't know how to put in my reference.
Oh, in the chat.
Yeah, it says type, but I want to
just
paste.
type.
But it's too long. I want to paste. Here it is.
Right click.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Now it is. Now I think it's there. Yes.
Yes.
And please send me your paper on. No, it was in Malay. Sorry.
Okay, was in Malay.
Yeah.
I was supposed to translate it, but have yet to do that. I think Brian wrote something about he uses other things, other tools aside from SR in his clinic. Brian, you want to maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, I think it was an earlier comment on either do we just use SR to assess children's language. I think SR is just a part in language assessment. We can do a lot more informal tests. There's a lot more play. Sentence repetition, you have to sit. You have to face in front. Okay, you have to listen. But I think a lot of play, that you can go, especially for kids, you can get a lot of language sampling, for example. Other tests.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so that Hakansan 2000, comprehension and production of relative clauses. All right. Just one announcement. My student has put that feedback form. So after the session has ended, I would just kindly request everyone to just fill in that form. Just tell us what do you think of the event. Right. After the session, well, we're still ongoing. All right. Any more questions to Prof. Rogayah? Okay.
I just thank you for a very illuminating lot of data.
Yes.
On this, and this is rather So it's very good. It's excellent that we get a little bit of Asian studies out as well. So unfortunately, you might have to write them in English too, right? So that they get a little bit more airing outside of Malaysia. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Prof.
All right.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Ruby.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm very honored. So thank you, Prof, for sharing with us, and of course, Prof students, Zurhanis and Brian, for sharing with us your experience. These are all very illuminating. So I think if we have nothing else, can we have can everyone just turn on their camera and we have a screenshot? This is the photography session, as usual, for evidence. If the administration asks, I said, yes, we did the job well.
Okay.
Okay. So, Shifa, Liana, can you guys also take pictures? I'll just screenshot. I'll do that as well. So just turn on your camera and smile. And okay, hold on. All right. Everyone's ready? One.
Already.
All right. Just smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more because we have a second. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. One more time, sorry, because there's a lot of participants. All right. So I'll ask my students to share the pictures by email later. There's slightly an error on the session for the second question. Okay, Liana, can you tell us what's the problem?
Okay, the problem is the second question that asks about what's the link easily accessible. So there's two, both sides have poor. So actually just put the 5 as excellent, similarly to the first one.
She's influencing everyone to put 5.
Yes, because it is excellent. So just click 5.
All right. Yeah, thank you everyone for attending this event. Inshallah, we will have more lecture series, inshallah, with other speakers. So thank you so much for attending. yeah, I think that's all for today. Okay, so hopefully you guys can give us, my students has tried to influence you, giving good feedback, excellent feedback in the feedback form. All right. So yeah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Cass.
Bye-bye. See you again. Inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
Prof, Prof Rogayah, I think Dr. Aisyah wants to meet you. Our
yes. Is Dr. Aisyah here?
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Rogayah. How are you?
Hi,